This is aftonsparv, aka the IKEA alien. And for the record, I know that aftonsparv isn't its real name. That's the name of the entire space collection that IKEA has. And it also translates to evening sparrow, and I'm not exactly sure how that relates to the space theme, but who am I to argue with the pros at IKEA? But anyway, you've probably also heard of the IKEA shark. This is the standard shark, and this is the giant shark. This is the standard alien, but where is the giant alien? And for that matter, where's the tiny shark? But I guess that's a topic for a different day. So this is an open message to IKEA. Please, 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 please give us a giant aftonsparv. Please. But I guess in the meantime, I can try making my own. Hi, my name is Emily, and I am an amateur doll maker.
This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online platform offering creative classes for hobbyists, professionals, newbies, and everyone in between. Whether you're learning a new craft or trying to level up in your career, Skillshare is the perfect place to get started, where you can learn from real and experienced teachers and find help and support in the people taking the classes with you. Did you know sewing virtuoso Bernadette Banner has her own sewing classes? As a semi-amateur kind of intermediate seamstress who is maybe a little too reliant on the sewing machine, I always have more to learn, and taking her beginner's class on sewing by hand is super helpful in getting me more confident in, well, sewing by hand. Especially these buttonhole stitches. I can't tell you how many times I had to forfeit buttons in the project just because my fabric was way too thick to fit through the machine. I love how calm her tutorials are and the clear, concise way she explains everything, and if you're interested in taking her class or any of the hundreds of curated classes offered by Skillshare, the first 500 people to use my link in the description or scan the QR code on screen right now will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Get started today, and now back to aftonsparv. So yesterday at the thrift store, I came across the perfect aftonsparv green throw blanket, but I didn't get it because I thought it was too small. I think it was $8. But then I went home and I looked up the prices of minky fabrics online, and I realized $8 is like nothing. So I'm going back there now to see if anybody has bought it yet. We shall see. Blanket in hand, and they actually sold it to me for $3.
So first off, we need to figure out a pattern for this guy. Don't question why he is dressed like this. He is very fashionable.
Once again, the patterning process begins with smothering the doll. I pinned some scrap fabric tight over each of its body parts and carefully traced the seams, and I'm using a washable marker this time, don't worry.
I am sorry, aftonsparv. I'm stabbing you in the crotch. I feel like I'm doing an autopsy on him. And here we have the biblically accurate aftonsparv. And now I'm going to bring this into the computer and clean it up a bit. As much as it pains me, I'm going to make a small, true-to-size mock-up, just because if I mess up, I want to mess up on the small mock-up instead of my big green fabric, because I only have one of that big green fabric and I don't really want to go out and look for another one. Minky fabric is really expensive. So the pattern doesn't include any seam allowance, so I have to remember that when I'm cutting this out. This area in particular, it's looking quite dangerous. There's barely any room for seam allowances. You might have also noticed that this looks a bit different from the pattern that I was drawing previously, and that's because I realized I messed up the scale of the pattern I was drawing, so I had to redraw it.
But anyway, I sketched out a 1/4 inch seam allowance and cut everything out.
The other thing this mock-up will help me figure out is the order of operations. I am not totally sure the way I did the eye is going to work out, and if it doesn't work, then this will just be one solid piece and the eye will be sewn on separately like a little applique.
For the mock-up, I decided to use this orange fabric that I made my brick and traffic cone dolls out of because I just have so much of it, and I cut everything out.
Alright, where should I start? I guess I'll start by putting all these little tails and antenna pieces together. That seems like the simplest part. This size is looking pretty good. This is the first one I made and I realized it's way too big. It dwarfs the original one. I'm going to pre-stuff this because I think that's the way they did it in theirs as well. Next, I think I'm going to put together the head. So I'll connect the back of the head pieces down the center seam. Those are my socks, don't look at that. And then connect the under eye area right here, and then attach the eyes into them. I forgot, I also need to sew up the center seam of the face. Okay, so now we attach the eyeballs, and this is the part I'm a little unsure about, so let's just see how this goes. So I've cut a little slit in the corner of the eye here, so that I could fold the seam allowance inwards, and that's where we're going to attach the eyeball. Pinch the fabric together, just like that, and now we're going to sew it on the machine. It's looking a bit like an abalone. Ta-da! It's not perfect in the corner down here. I couldn't sew all the way down there because I didn't have enough seam allowance to grip onto. Oh, problem solving, this is gonna be so annoying. Let's attach the antennas to the face. Face, antennas, and now we just lay the head on top and sew them all together along the top edge.
This is turning out way better than I thought it would.
Next, I'm going to put together the arms and then the legs. Arms are pretty simple. You just fold it over and then stitch along this curved line. Same for the legs. Fold in half and sew along here. Now sew together this short edge on the opposite side we just sewed right here. And then we open this up perpendicularly and then sew together this way. It's a bit less round than I was hoping it would be. I think I started the stitch a little too abruptly, so I should have done something more like this. More gradual, gentle slope. Okay, I decided to try it. This looks much better, much less boxy, more smooth. Leg, leg, arm, arm. And now we can attach this to the body. So to attach the legs, I ended up having to sew up the back and the tail first. And I also noticed that the leg is a bit longer than the leg hole, so that's something I also have to keep in mind. Other than all of that, it's time to attach the head to the body. Body inside out, head right side out, and now I'm just going to stuff this head into the neck hole. And then we just stitch everything up. I should have left a hole on the back to turn everything right side out. I guess I'll just leave a hole in the neck for now, but for the big version, we know what to do.
Now let's see if everything fits through this tiny little hole I left. One antenna. Time to stuff this little guy. Do you guys want to see my cat sleeping? End of the cat intermission.
So as you can see, they're not exactly twins, but I think they're close enough that I can call my pattern mostly a success. The eye, I think, is a little rounder on the original. Obviously, I still need to add the eye shinies. The shape of the head and the antenna placement, I think, are all pretty good. I think the biggest problem comes with the shape of the body and the legs. The original is kind of a skinny legend, and mine is a bit pudgy, but I think that it's pretty darn close. And obviously I didn't add a mouth on this one. Okay, let's keep track of all the changes we need to make. Aftonsparv, aftonsparv, aha! Giant aftonsparv. Don't look at my other ideas in here. Rounder eyes, check. Leg dimensions. Honestly, I don't know how much of this is actually going to matter once we get to the full-size thing, because I think maybe the proportional discrepancy would look less obvious when it's so much bigger than the original aftonsparv, but let me just write these down anyway. The other thing that I was thinking, I think the leg pattern piece can just be symmetrical, so I don't need to deal with whatever this little slope is. I think the arm is overall pretty good, but I need to make sure that this and this are the same length. The thing is, I can't tell if some of these issues are caused by my pattern being wrong or by the fabric being very difficult to sew. I think the eye is the correct shape, it's just that when I sewed it on, I wasn't doing a very good job of it. See, I tried to give my afton a bigger butt because this one does have a little bit of a booty here, but I guess I didn't succeed. Bigger butt. Time to give the pattern a bit of alterations. So this is the fabric. Originally, I wanted a fabric that's more similar to the original aftonsparv, very classic, plushy texture. However, I decided that this fluffy fabric, Excuse me. This fluffy fabric will probably hide lumps and bumps from the stuffing a lot better, considering the size the final product will be. It's also kind of similar to the texture of the IKEA shark, so it's kind of fitting. This fabric is about 55 by 66 inches. Unfortunately, I'm going to lose one corner of it because of this Winnie the Pooh embroidery. Not sure if you can see it, but there's kind of like a thread pulled out of it, so this area I have to be very careful about cutting around. Usually the size of the final product is predetermined by the pattern itself, but in this case, the final product will be determined by the amount of fabric I have, which means the size of the pattern pieces is kind of undetermined at this moment. So I gotta figure out how much I'm going to enlarge these tiny pattern pieces I drew. Man, how am I gonna do this?
Hey Mika, be careful there.
Sometimes there comes a point in a project where decision paralysis just completely locks you up. I still can't decide what method I want to use to get my giant pattern onto the fabric, but there's one thing I do know for sure, and that's that I need to get an ungodly amount of interfacing onto the fabric. So let's tackle that first. So that took me about 25 minutes, and that's only half of the fabric. And also I realized I didn't really calculate if I have enough interfacing for this, so let's just hope for the best. I finally have the whole thing interfaced, except for this like tiny little 2-inch strip along one edge, but honestly that's fine. I'm contemplating if I should interface this little area beside the embroidery, because this area might be useful. I should figure out how much of this fabric I'll actually use before I decide to iron anything on, because this is how much interfacing I have left, so this is kind of precious commodity for me right now, and I don't want to waste it on something I don't need to use it on. Time to figure out the pattern. So here is the digital mock-up. This is the size of the fabric folded in half. Of course, I took into account the area with the embroidery and the weird picked thread area. And I think placement-wise, this is how we can avoid all of it. Except you might look up here and see, but the leg is overlapping with the embroidery. Well, here is my plan. Because remember, the embroidery is only on one side, so that means the other side of the fabric, once I open it up, there is an entire blank area where I can put one leg, and then right here, I can put on the fold another leg. So hopefully that all works out. Now I could tile print this layout onto like 1,000 pieces of paper, or I could tape a bunch of this giant paper into the same dimension as the fabric folded in half, project an image onto the paper and trace it. I know that sounds more complicated than just printing it out of the printer, but I think this method will allow me to control the size of the pattern pieces a lot better. I don't think my face was in the scene at all, but Mika's butt sure was.
What do you think, Miki?
Anyway, let's get to work. Now I'm going to get the pattern pieces onto my projector and start tracing. All right, let's get tracing. I don't know if you guys can hear, but the rain is insane right now. Earlier, I was gonna say that I can just go out and buy more interfacing, but in this weather, I don't think so. Anywho, here is all the pattern pieces traced out. I also, right here, have the paw pieces and the ear dots. Obviously, I don't have any of the seam allowances on there yet, so that's the next thing we have to draw.
With my trusty tape-wrapped die, I traced a 1/2-inch seam allowance around every pattern piece, although recently I discovered it's more like 5/8 inch, but whatever, they're close enough.
Mika, please don't do that.
Look what my cats already did to my previously perfectly pristine paper. Holes, typical.
I still think there's gotta be a way to fudge around this specific pattern piece enough to get a proper seam allowance down here. So this is what the pattern piece would look like if this part had a full seam allowance. Flatten this out so that these 2 points aren't touching. You can take a bit off the middle. So I pleated this down a bit. And now these 2 points aren't touching, which is exactly what we want. And now I believe all the pieces are ready to be cut out of the blanket. Through some miracle of magic, I was able to fit all of the pattern pieces without using up this area. That means if anything goes wrong, I have some extra fabric to fall back on.
Like any furry fabric, this blanket sheds like nobody's business, so some vacuuming was in order.
There was one thing, or several things, sorely missing from my mock-up, and that's the toe beans and the ear circles, also the tail circles right here. I have all the pattern pieces ready right here, and now let's go look for some fabric. Yellow, white, blue, black. So here are the fabrics. They're all corduroy, which is nice because it'll kind of emulate the embroidery look of this. First, let's cut out its eyes in black and also its triangular toe bean. And now we just repeat this process for all the other beans. So before I sew together any of the major doll pieces, I'm going to attach these to their corresponding appendages. And the way I'm going to do that is by using heat and bond to really secure them down, and then using the machine to embroider over the edges. This is starting to look so legit. The next step is finding all the corresponding colors to do the edge embroidery. In my pocket, I have some threads that I dug up from my stash. I'm fairly certain that the blue thread that I have don't really match. Je pense que c'est tout. Yellow, black, sort of an off-white beigey color. See, this blue just isn't quite right, and this is way too bright. I think tomorrow I'm gonna have to go thrifting for some. So I'm going to the thrift store later today, but in the meantime I thought I'd try embroidering the yellow one. Let's start this nice and slow. Look at this, this looks so legit. This looks like the real thing. This is so exciting. Let's get all the yellow stuff done first.
Filled with newfound confidence in my embroidering skills, I decided to embroider the black stuff too. And the white stuff.
There's so many white things I have to stitch, and tell me why they're all circles.
By the time I was ready to go to the thrift store, I had basically embroidered everything except for the blue.
Beans. I'm back. The thread selection at the thrift store wasn't exactly awe-inspiring, but I did get this blue. It's slightly more vibrant than the one I already had. This is $1. Some cool frames, and also 2 bags of Lego. I've been asking this on Instagram, but would it be weird if in the future I made a video about Lego? That's crafting adjacent, right? Anyway, we can finally get embroidering. Doesn't this look so freaking cool? I'm so excited to get assembling finally. I think we should start with the tails. Ta-da! I'm going to stuff this and then baste shut the open end. Let's put the ears together. Look at this. This is ridiculous. Oh, I just realized I didn't do an applique for its mouth.
But I decided to tackle the face first before placing the mouth.
Wow, he is gigantic. This is my hand for scale.
Doing things a little differently from the mock-up, which is over there in that pile of fabric, I stay-stitched around the eye holes first and then sewed together that under-eye area only right up to the stay-stitching, and then I clipped all the curves.
Mika, I don't want to cut off your whiskers by accident. Mika, please. You're being quite dangerous.
I thought this would make attaching the eyeball itself easier, but it was still kind of annoying.
We have reached abalone stage again, and now let's sew this together. So I just came back from dinner and I feel like I had an epiphany. So instead of this whole convoluted mess that I was trying to explain to you about how to sew the eyes in, here's what I should have done instead. I should have sewn just the bottom edge of the eye to the eye hole, and then in one fell swoop sewed these 2 edges together like pink. I feel like I just blew my own mind. But anyway, back to this version of the head. I'm going to sew the middle seam together.
Now that the eyes are in place, it's much easier to position the mouth, for which I used the same process as all the other appliques. Pattern, fabric, heat and bond, embroider. And then I sewed on the antennas and called it a night.
I wonder if I can finish sewing everything today, because it doesn't seem like I have that much to do. I just have to sew together the head, the arms, the legs, now, finally, we can start attaching the appendages to the body. Firstly, I'm going to attach the arms. And then same as before we attach the legs, we do have to close up the back. First, we have to attach the tail and also something a little different. You may find this unhinged of me, but I want to make a giant tag for its butt. I don't think I'm gonna make all the tags because there's just so many, but I definitely want the name, the size, and the code. I don't think I'll be putting IKEA on the tag because I don't want to get sued.
And to figure out what to put as its size, of course I had to measure my giant alien.
About 85 centimeters. Would be cooler if he was 100 centimeters, but oh my gosh, wait, I didn't measure his antennas. Are we gonna get to 100 with the antennas? Look at this, 100. Yes.
With that figured out, I collected my supplies, which was this sliver of iron-on vinyl and some white cotton fabric.
This white cotton is also from IKEA, so, you know, comes full circle.
The sewing process was simple enough. I got a long rectangle, sewed the long sides together, flipped it inside out, and top stitched everything flat.
Now that this label fabric is all prepared, we can get working on the graphics.
Let's weed these out. Now I'm just going to really quickly baste the open edge together.
This makes me so unreasonably happy. Look at it, it's a giant label.
And then it was just a matter of attaching everything together. I clipped the edge of the tag so it could rest easily against the curve of the booty, basted it and the tail in place, and then sewed up the back, nearly forgetting to leave a hole for turning inside out. And then I sewed the crotch seams together, attached the legs, and then
the last step in assembly is now attaching the head. By the way, when I was making the head, 2 separate people thought I was making a couch cushion, so IKEA, another idea for you.
Anyway, I shoved the head into the neck hole, sewed it together, and then went through the arduous process of turning the doll inside out because I accidentally made the hole just a bit too small.
Yes! It's a success! Oh my gosh, he is so freaking ginormous. So I suppose now, all that is left to do is to stuff him. I ran out of stuffing, but it's a good thing that I have a ton more up there.
And after giving it a heart and one last round of stuffing, we are finally ready for the final reveal.
Look at him. I just can't get over the fact that I made him and he is so giant. I was really worried, as you saw when I was buying the fabric, that he wasn't going to be big enough, but he is really hefty. He is huge. He is no longer actually 100 centimeters, but I think he's pretty dang close. Look at this. I think this is a pretty comparable size. As you can see, the antennas are a little floppy. I think I could have had an open channel between the antenna and the head just so the stuffing could get in between them and actually prop it up properly. I think it looks fine the way it is as well. The way I sewed the eyes together made it a little warbly. I don't recommend the way I did it. Like, it was very confusing anyway, so. But otherwise, I am so freaking proud that I made this abomination. Look at him. He's looking at you. Look at his toe beans. Hello. I especially love the giant tag I made for him. Like, that is such a superfluous thing to make, but I think it just completes the whole look. And I just love him so much. I sincerely doubt that IKEA is watching this, but on the off chance that they somehow are, look at this giant aftonsparv. Don't you want to mass produce this beautiful creature? Isn't he worth your time and money? If you too want to make your own giant aftonsparv, or even a regular sized aftonsparv, I will hopefully have the patterns linked down below. Also, I have these aftonsparv ID cards, and if you're not into aftonsparv, I also have the IKEA shark ID card available in my store. I hope you enjoyed this video of me making the giant aftonsparv, and if you end up making your own, please tag me on Instagram because I would love to see it. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!